Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Flame. This time we are talking about the silent smokers still cooking, so the invisible agents and how AI is quietly reshaping teams. But I think we have some news for you this week that we're going to kick it off with. So Ed, what is that news?
Yeah, so we're talking about AI and agents and how they're going to be utilized more so within enterprise organizations. And it just so happens that Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Block, literally just laid off almost 50% of his company. So Block has, I think, Venmo and Cash App and several other smaller companies within that. But he went from 10,000 employees to just over 6,000. So
Wow.
4,000 people got laid off. And, it's under the guise of AI and, it's going to, we can, do most of those jobs with AI now. If you ask
Yeah.
me, I think some of that is true. Yes. I think maybe they did some overhiring during COVID and are now scaling back, which we're going to see some of these other companies happening as well. But again, what that does is it stokes the fear of, oh my God, AI is coming, and are we all going to lose our jobs?
Yeah. And like you said, I think there's an element which is highly repetitive jobs. They might be the first on the chopping block, but there are some myths about, hey, is going to immediately replace everything, right? And I think the first one that we can kind of talk about is like these virtual agents talking about replacing those frontline workers, the ones that we see kind of day in, day out.
Yeah, like you said. So unfortunately, if your job is something like data entry, a very highly repetitive task,
Mm.
that is more than likely going to be automated with AI. So it will be able to do it faster and more accurate than the humans.
Mm.
Same goes with some of these other, very highly repetitive tasks of specific actions within, say, for example, your IT department, where you have someone that's all they do is reset passwords and forward you to the next person or answers specific questions from employees on Slack about HR. Some of
Mm.
those kind of things. Those are gonna probably maybe take a hit, but we're definitely not going to lose everyone, kind of thing.
But I think this is actually where we get the opportunity to talk about like deflection versus replacement, right? Those highly repetitive. If we talk about service agents, because these are the kind of the easiest ones to think about. If I'm asked to do a password reset, if I'm asked to understand what my HR policy is, and all those types of things, what we can consider in that moment is that is highly repetitive. You're going to get that loads and loads of times. But what you can do, and you can already do this even technically without service agents, which is if you have good knowledge, ticket deflection rates are already a measured outcome, which is how often can we push easy things to self-serve. Now, what that then allows you to do is have the same number of agents pursuing much more meaningful tasks and less wastage on dealing with things like that.
Yep.
So I think that angle is easier and more familiar to probably quite a few of those teams, and especially maybe those that are now trying out AI agents, which is just to remove the fluff and actually refocus teams on what actually moves the business and that department forward.
Exactly. And then I think another kind of myth that we talk about sometimes is that AI understands our processes well enough to make decisions, and to that I
Mm.
would say no. Um, AI is very good at pattern matching and routing. It's been trained on to predict what your next word or request is going to be based on its data set, right? It's been trained on that. It does not have judgment. And the judgment comes from experience and from, knowing your enterprise processes and then how they
Mm.
will be impacted, kind of thing. So AI is not at a point, at least now, that
Mm.
it's going to be able to make specific decisions. Even if it has all the context in the world, there's still, going to be some judgment decisions that need to be made.
Yeah. So again, I actually had this conversation with one of my family members while we were away, fairly recently, which is like if we consider like transactional based opportunities, right? So maybe you, Ed, as the seller and me as the buyer. If it's really transactional, I don't necessarily need to be involved. An AI agent could do that because he knows that he's going to you. You know what the price is, or you return with the price, and it's just a yes no kind of decision.
Right.
I think that's there, but there is an element which is human nature still exists, and gut feeling is still very much part of that human decision making, which is, everything in the world could be telling me to make this decision for that factor. And AI is very good at being objectively, like from that decision perspective, it's going to be able to say, like, based on all the research, this is the one that we would recommend. It's not going to go make maybe that decision. It's going to do that recommendation for you. But gut feeling, human feeling, still has a part to play in that decision making as well.
Yep.
And I think that's the bit, because it's not emotional. It doesn't have those random thoughts and processes to consider. So yeah, is it going to be able to replace all of our processes? Probably not. I think you're forgetting the major bit here, which is people.
Yep. And speaking of that, another thing that a lot of times people talk about is that, hey, if we automate everything with AI, we're going to lose the human touch. And I think you touched on it earlier. We're going to be able to automate all of the repetitive kind of things, which is going to actually free up your resources to focus on things that they enjoy, or makes a bigger impact. So, for example, if you automate all your frequently asked questions to benefits from AR perspective, right? They're going to be served up by an AI agent faster, quicker, more efficiently. But then that also allows your HR resources to focus efforts on anything, that may be more important to them, such as, an employee benefit program that they're rolling out, or dealing with actual employees that may be having a specific life event going on. They can, focus on those now.
Yeah, and that is the important factor, which is we are. Maybe I think the easiest way is to refocusing the human touch, not losing the human touch, right? That is, you're just pushing it to the things that actually are going to create a larger impact. So in your case over there, so a person's having a life event going on in a business.
Someone's having a baby.
Well, yeah, there we go. But having someone who is able to focus and provide time and be able to answer those questions, that is more impactful than having someone necessarily just read from a script or whatever it might be. And this is in almost every line of business. It's not service related. It's not one department related. Having like human decisions and human judgments and conversations are all what make us better in one sense of another. So working, I think this is the biggest thing actually, automation losing the human touch. It is not a human collaboration, and it is no longer an AI collaboration. It's very much joining the two together and having a human to AI collaboration, because they do exist and we will be working with them in every sense of the world. So it's now, how do we get the best out of each other to kind of move that forward?
Yeah, and it is going to be a collaboration. So AI is going to be your thinking wingman now. So it's going to help you. It's going to help make your thinking faster, but it's also going to make you able to, farm off some of the stuff that, you just need AI to help you think through specific items and then present them back to you, or even question you about certain things. Can you validate my thinking on this based on this context? And it will say, yeah, that sounds right. Or be like, no, you didn't think about this. So it's going to be that kind of collaboration that's going to help out.
I think that's a really important factor, which is using it as the stock check and being like, have I done this? Ask me questions to prove that my understanding is valid. And we've spoken in previous episodes actually about how to be the human in the loop, how to understand and confidence score your decision making. These are all valuable parameters in which how we will continue to operate with whatever said AI agent, right? And these are things to consider. Okay, so do you know what? The one thing that I don't want to convince people of in this episode is that, AI is not going to be replacing our jobs, but it does. AI and automation has been around for a little while and is rolling out successfully. And there are things that AI agents and automation are doing on our behalf that people may not even be aware of. So what is an invisible agent?
Yeah, so invisible agents are, they're working in the background. You don't actively see them. You're not on a chat bot saying, "Hey, Mr. AI, go, evaluate this new press release and tell me what's going on." So invisible agents are kind of working in the background where, they may, be looking at specific um, applications within your enterprise. So maybe they're looking at, Slack, or they're looking at any, some kind of portal or request system that's coming in, and actually, based on predefined rules, they may take action based on what's coming in. So, for example, if you have a Slack, message coming in, and it contains the words password reset, it knows that this person needs to do a password reset, and will automatically respond to them with, "Hey, here's the documentation on how to um,
Mm,
reset your password." Right. So they're working in the background. You don't quite see them, but they are there.
yeah, and I think that intelligent deflection, right? And that's one example. Whether it's in Slack,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously you might see it on things like JSM portals. Even the dumbest version of self-serve is just being able to showcase knowledge articles on your portal and do that ticket deflection. Because again, humans would rather be served and be able to do things by themselves and just have it work rather than having to always wait for a ticket response. That's been proven in different studies. But the intelligent deflection in there, which is, it's automatically picked up on the intent. It is already fielding the right response out, and it is presenting that. It's not requiring maybe a spotlight, like you said, the spotlight kind of automation where it's you have to go to a chatbot, you have to go to, maybe you're on a phone call, whatever. Right? Those are more spotlight automations. This is just something it's detecting and automatically rushing through.
Yeah, and indirectly, or actually more directly, that is probably going to have an impact on your internal CSAT scores, right? So,
Mm,
as these AI automation, in the background is actively serving up this intelligent deflection, right? Um, the requester is going to get the answer quicker, and theoretically, it should be resolved a lot quicker. And so, from that standpoint, you're going to have happier user experience from that.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of actually leads me nicely on to something that I was thinking about, which is more of like the automated like triage and routing. And again, that I know that can be maybe fairly service related specific, but it still applies in kind of almost any line of work, right? If you have a specific item, who is the best person to go and work on this? Who is the person who has the most amount of skills? Who is the person who has the workload available? Whatever it might be.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be service related. It could, it applies to knowledge or maybe doing agile or agile at scale, right? But the
Yeah.
whole
So that.
purpose is an analyzing those skill sets, and it's automatically bringing them into that conversation.
Yep. Exactly. So triaging and routing, right? So from a triaging perspective, we've talked previously on different types of context that AI deals with, and some
Mm,
of it is that implicit context of, "Hey, I see that we have a customer that has just replied, and based on their text pattern of what they have written, it looks like they're frustrated. So
mm,
we need to reply in an empathetic manner, and then we also may need to uh, transition that to an escalated kind of status, or
mm,
send a notification kind of thing." Um, from that perspective. And then also, like routing. So now we're getting really good at bringing in AI to evaluate, what are our resources allocations? Where are they doing? How's their load of work being balanced? And how do we make sure that we don't over allocate resources
yeah.
from kind of thing?
I mean, the routing is one of the interesting ones for me, right? So from a JSM perspective, for a little while now, it is being able to recommend key stakeholders to bring into that conversation. Because again, it's recognizing the pattern of they were the ones to help before, that ticket got resolved successfully, or that team brought it in and was resolved successfully. Let's bring them into this conversation. But I think the interesting one is Atlassian talent, right? And that more of the HR and people side, right? So again, for those that don't know, talent is able to do kind of that skill-based resource and capacity management as part of the strategic collection. But I think what I really have enjoyed, like when I've been talking to people about it, is, again, which is we have all of this work. This is the pipeline of work. These are the initiatives that we're going to want to work on. Who are the best teams that we need to bring in? Okay, let's automatically route these epics or this initiative over to that set of departments. They can handle it. And then you could talk about, okay, well, again, what happens if this project goes off scale? Who do we need to bring in? What do we need to drop? How do we want to have those conversations? Because it's understanding the previously provided knowledge and context to make those better decisions.
Yeah. So, when a ticket comes in that expressly asks for the person who can eat the most Yorkshire puddings, it will be routed Dan Toombs automatically.
Oh, absolutely. I think my record is about 48 in one sitting.
Oh,
yeah, it is. So I think we've spoken about this on almost every episode, I think, this season, and I definitely know we touched on it in season 1. But the knowledge is your fuel.
Yeah.
Right. It has to be in a great state. It has to be able to be easily readable and uniform in the same way that we work with it as AI needs to as well. Is there any good kind of good fuel, or what does good fuel quickly look like?
Yeah, and I think, we've pounded this on previous episodes as well, but it's because it's such an important concept in that AI is built on data.
Yeah.
Period. It's built on data. It's trained on data. It's trained on data patterns. So if you have, good data, you're going to have good results. You're going to have less hallucinations. So, how do we do that? As we've talked about previously, it's like you make sure that all your data, your knowledge bases, what you are utilizing with AI is up to date. So you have the most current knowledge base articles, how-to articles. You make sure that it is structured cleanly and scannably. So, from a search perspective, humans and AI can find what they're looking for. So, it's going to be structured, and you're going to have labels or other metric or other types of tagging for your knowledge bases or your data that's going to make it that easy. And then, along with that, you need to make sure that it is consistent across departments. So you want to make sure that IT doesn't have all their knowledge bases formatted one way, and then HR has theirs formatted a different way, because then it'll just add to the complexity of AI having to go back and forth if there are some cross-functional queries that need to happen or information that needs to be pulled together. It just makes life easier if everything is structured and searchable in a specific way, right?
Yeah, and I think the key thing into some of this is the feedback loop, right? Again, human in the loop. We've spoken about this before, but if there are robo agents out there that exist, I have seen them in the wild working, but if the knowledge isn't in a good enough position, you can start to work with it, which is bring that feedback loop in. This one is maybe has not been viewed in so long. This one has not been updated in so long. These ones are contradicting each other in terms of the information present. So start working with your knowledge and get that feedback loop in, because then you can put the right processes in place to kind of, again, guardrail both the AI agents and your humans as well. We've kind of flown through the last couple of segments, I know, but in essence, we've spoken about the myths that exist, and it is going to change the way that we work, but it's not going to replace, right? It's going to enhance. We're going to be ending up collaborating with AI agents more. We've understood what invisible agents kind of look like and how automations already exist and kind of where you may be working with them unknowingly, and kind of those patterns that you might already see. And we've spoken, obviously, knowledge is key. That we've banged on about that for a while. But at times we have to be able to fall back on human-made decisions. So what would you expect this to kick out with?
Yeah, so I do a lot of this when I do some of my vibe coding. So when I present the AI with some vibe coding instructions, I usually generate some kind of a design document or a requirements document, and within that, I I point out, here's the goal of what we're doing. Here's what's in scope. Here's what's not in scope. Um, if you don't understand anything, please ask the questions, right? So I try to put some guardrails on AI to know that it can ask questions if it is not 100% certain of what it is generating and or trying to do. So there's a couple of different things that are kind of stacked within that. So you have you can have confidence resolutions, right? So um, if the AI is 100% sure or 95% sure that what they're doing is correct, that's great. If it's not, and you can set this as a like a barrier or a metric that is, if you are not, 88% sure of what you're doing, stop and ask me a question until you are 88% sure or higher, kind of thing. So, you have your confidence in the answer of what's coming, and if AI is not confident, it can stop and ask you and say, "Hey, let's make sure we get this right," kind of thing, right? And so then the other layer is that I had specific pieces that were out of scope, because sometimes AI can go, it can kind of go sideways if um, it's working on a specific thing. It can also say, "Hey, well, what, while we're doing this, we could do this," and it's like, "No, that's out of scope. Let's keep to the guardrails that we have set." So, setting those guardrails up is kind of what helps facilitate those fallbacks to a human interaction, kind of thing. So, do you have a confidence score that you have specified to the AI to adhere to, and then ask you questions if it does not hit that confidence score, and then how you also put guardrails in on what is in scope, what is out of scope, kind of thing. So,
Mm. I think that's a key thing, right? So your first tier, which is, we have all the knowledge. This is a highly repeatable thing.
yep,
An AI agent and it has the connections. It could easily go ahead and just do that task, or tell somebody how to do that task. That's easy. The low one, which is, I think I'm sure I don't quite maybe meet my confidence score. Maybe I have to be at 90% above. What I'm going to do is provide a write up and give that to an agent so that they can then take over and make that seamless
yep,
in touch. And then, like you say, because sometimes it can run a bit wild, this is a complete hard stop, massively out of scope as your tier 3, and kind of just and so like you said, maybe we're not going to focus on this part of a product. We're going to solely just focus on this. We don't want to kind of focus or think about anything else outside of that particular scope. Now, sometimes there are some anti-patterns. Sometimes, again, maybe certain things maybe not go quite as well as they want. Maybe one of those could be what is known as like an infinite loop. Sometimes you may have already experienced these yourself,
oh yeah,
where an agent will continue to clarify questions and never either escalates or resolves, and you end up kind of almost rage quitting.
yes.
They are difficult to get out of, but have you got any others?
Um, if you don't put some of the guardrails on to ask questions, you always get the "you're absolutely right. This is a great idea" response from AI, and it's like,
Overconfident agents, kind of
overconfident.
not.
It's like, oh yeah, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm absolutely right. I'm just telling you, hey, this is what I was thinking, and then so then you have to give it the permission to push back and or question it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So if you have an overconfident kind of agent is one, and then I guess you can kind of it depends on how you have them set up within your enterprise on agent handoffs, but you can kind of get into a ping pong loop of, hey, HR agent hands off to procurement agent, which doesn't have clarity, hands back off to HR agent, which thinks it does have
Yeah.
clarity, hands it back off to procurement agent. And, so sometimes you'll have a ping pong action.
Yeah, or almost worse, which is the ghost ones where they hand off and then it kind of removes it from someone's visibility and goes into like this big black hole. Hello, welcome back. Short break between the two cuts. We had to do it over a different day, but we're going to get straight back into where we left off. So, where we kind of want to turn the conversation now is actually about measuring and understanding the impact of whatever we're doing with AI, right? So any AI agent that we're bringing in, how do we actually know that they have genuinely made an improvement in terms of our kind of lifestyle and kind of working productivity and stuff? Now, there are a couple of metrics that I think are semi-important, as yours is far more important than mine, but I think containment rate is good because it does show us the quality of our knowledge. And, if your AI agents are able to just do the work, completely take that away from humans because they've got all the knowledge they need, they've got the run books they need, they've got the automations in place to do that, then we are completely removing the need for manual effort at all. But I think yours is far more important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, containment rate is great. So, right, we've contained the agentic action to the agent, and they have executed it and delivered the end result without human intervention. So that's great. But I think as we get more and more into agentic processes, so multiple agents and interaction between agents and humans, I think the one thing that's going to be important to measure and or focus on is like the handoff quality, right? So how is is an agent able to hand off successfully to another agent kind of thing? So it's like, they don't get stuck and just sit there. Are they able to hand it off with the appropriate context to the next agent that has been defined to work on that piece of work, right? So
Yeah. Your analogy when we were talking offline was really interesting to me, which was about like a relay race you see on, 4x100 at the Olympics or whatever. You've started the race, you've given maybe some initial prompt. The second handoff is how it's gone to the first agent. Then you've got another agent, then you've got the finish, right?
yep.
So it's already at running speed. So how do you keep that momentum before you fail at the first hurdle kind of thing?
Yeah. And so analogy, the baton that you're handing off is the context that we're handing
Yeah.
off between the agents. Because, if you don't have the appropriate context, handing off from agent 1 to agent 2 may have its overall prompt design, but it needs the context to understand exactly what to do with the next step in the process. Kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So since handoff quality is so important, what kind of things would we need to kind of keep an eye out for, maybe to understand whether we actually do have the good kind of handoff quality that we should between our products or our humans, even human to AI agent?
Yeah. So we have, what is our expected results that we're going to be, are we nailing those every time? And then, basically, what is the end user getting a satisfactory result? So end user being, they are the person that is benefiting from this agentic or collaborative process that we have. The human in the loop, are they satisfied with what is happening, and has the agents fulfilled what they've been designed to do and execute, kind of thing? So
Yeah, that satisfaction is really, really key because I was at I was actually at an Atlassian event in Frankfurt during February, and there was a talk on there it was about the HR and ITSM. That was the context for it, but throughout the entirety of that process, even though they were trying to move more and more into um, whether it was just better knowledge and self-service or having their chatbot and AI handle those things, the entire thing was all about the quality of service they offered. And if it affected the customer or the agent's satisfaction in their role, then they wouldn't do that because they knew they needed it to be a positive experience. So
yep.
if it had negative content connotations, you knew that the quality of service, and then it's going to put that what's their age-old saying, which is reputation takes years to build, but mere moments to destroy.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
that's the same thing that we could be running into here, which is we spent all this amazing time building and understanding the quality of our service. And if you just give it to an AI and it destroys it, no one's going to want to use you, right? I think the only other metric that I think is really key to important, especially if you're doing like internal processes, not necessarily whether you're working specific with customers or anything, but is just that time to assignment, time to completion. So understanding, is it bringing down your cycle and lead times if we're
Yep.
talking kind of development world, and also just in general, like if we if we know that our process, because we've been doing it for 10 years, takes us a week to do, how are we actually getting faster, or are we actually getting better quality work for the same amount of time? So understanding what your ROI should be, those are
Y-
your key things as well.
Yeah, so it's the whole MTTR, right? Mean time to
Hmm.
resolution kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
um, are we improving that kind of thing? So
yeah,
that is
absolutely.
a big metric within the ITSM world. Mean time to resolution, mean time to. I think there's a couple different meanings for it, but that is going to be impacted by this agentic processes now. So, are we improving that metric? Okay, Dan. So let's review. What have we talked about today? So we talked about some of the myths around AI. AI is coming for your job. Is it going to automate everything away? And we talked about no, it's going to be more of a collaborative effort, since we're going to have the humans that are going to be able to orchestrate the AI
Mm,
processes. They're still going to need the human in the loop for a lot of the judgment calls. We talked about invisible agents that work in the background, right? So, we have deflection, in service management. We have automation within workflows, SLA escalations, and then, one thing that we pounded on this season is the knowledge. So AI is based on
yeah.
data, and if you have to have your data um, cleaned up in a nice format that is searchable by humans and AI to have the best benefit from your AI agents. Um,
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like we've said it every episode because there's a reason, which is, um, if you're migrating to cloud and you want to start getting use out of Rovo or any AI agent in general, straight away you need to take the step back and think: if we give it the information, is it going to be relevant? Is it going to be actually providing value? And if you can't answer those questions, then you need to look at the underlying things that you're going to give it. Right? I think that's the end result.
Yeah, yeah, and then, like we just talked about at the end, we need to obviously measure how our agents are impacting our work overall. So make sure we have those
Mhm.
metrics in place so we can look at, are we bettering our MTTR, are our customer service
Yeah.
improving? So
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so very much for joining us for this week's episode of Beyond the Flame. Catch us in the next one.